Alright, so this video is going to show you how to do a navigation bypass on your 2011 Nissan Maxima. This Maxima has the tech package, navigation package, and premium package. So it involves taking apart some things, drilling some holes, and rewiring. So if you're uncomfortable, turn back now, and I take no responsibility for what you do to your car or yourself in the process. So let's start by disconnecting the battery. You want to disconnect the negative terminal. This is going to cut the circuitry to everything so that you don't short anything out while you're working with those open electronics. So mine was a 10mm socket to undo it. Yours might be the same, might be different, but tuck it to the side when you're done. That way it won't connect on accident or slip back on. I recommend removing the shifter knob before you do anything else. It can be removed by sliding down the metal piece. There's a horseshoe pin on the white plastic part that can slide directly forward and off. So I take it off by using a small Phillips head screwdriver, just pushing on the pin a little bit while I pinch it from the front, and you can sort of work your way forward with it. There we go. You can also use some needle nose pliers from the front and just pluck it off. But taking off the knob here really helps protect it from getting chewed up by the stereo when you take it out. So there's a horseshoe pin rather, and then it slides right off, nice and easy. So keep it protected. Mine got chewed up a little bit by the stereo when I took it off. I don't want you to make the same mistake. Alright, so I used two plastic prying tools that I got with a previous electronics purchase way in the past. Just use something that's going to protect your interior. Okay, plastic is fine. Some people use a screwdriver with electrical tape all over it, but these pry tools work pretty well. You're just sliding it right in, goes in nice and easy, and you can see I'm prying, and you want to get it between the hard plastic of the cover and the foamy squishy part of your dash. And I use two to get a little extra leverage because it does take quite a bit to get it off the first time. Here I popped the upper right corner first, just above the vent. And there it is. I've just about popped it right there. Okay, so after you get that side, you want to get the left as well. This one was significantly harder for me. You really get two hands in there and get it pried just enough to get your fingertips in there. And then you can sort of work your fingertips to pull off the dash. Give one good tug, and then the upper section will come right off. Okay, there are four main clips to hold it on, and there they are. Okay, now behind this there are three main wires, all with their own clips here. So let's pull this off. There's the vent. Alright, the first wire is here underneath the vent on the right. Just pinch it and pull it off. Second one is underneath the other vent. And the third, right in the middle. A little bit bigger of a clip. Don't damage these wires. Make sure you're holding the clip when you pull it off. You'll regret it later if you don't. So here it is with the top part of the dash removed. Next up we remove that wood trimmed piece. It's held on by two black screws, and so we're going to remove those first. One is there. You can see it in the video. There it is, and there's the second one. Same location, just on the opposite side. So we'll take those off, and again this is held on by four clips in each of the corners. Alright, so let's take the screws out first. Just a Phillips head screwdriver. You can use the same Phillips head screwdriver for every single screw that we take out here. Go. Make sure you don't lose any of the screws that we take off, because common sense, you're going to need it when we're done. So these two should come out nice and easy, and then we'll take out the wood portion. Do it by grabbing on the top and just giving it a little tug. Okay, the top clips will come out. The bottom clips come out a little bit easier. You can pull from the very bottom or just work it down with your fingers. There we go. Once you get it, just set it down, because behind it there's actually one more wire connected to it. Here you have me pulling it forward, and there's that wire. You want to protect that one. Okay, this wire actually confused me the first time. I plugged it into the back of the stereo. It will actually fit into the back of the stereo. So don't get it confused. Make sure it goes back to this. Otherwise, you'll lose your lighting on the inside, your ventilation, all that stuff. So there it is sitting right there. Make sure you keep it within sight while you go. It'll save you trouble down the road later. So next up, we're going to remove the stereo. It's got 4 screws. And these are silver colored screws here. Basically in each of the corners, and then the stereo should come out nice and easy afterwards. And the bottom of the stereo does have some sharp edges, so be careful with your hands and everything else while you're going. You don't want to scratch up your interior, you don't want to cut your hands. There's some sharp edges down there, so just be sure to watch out. This is the ground wire that I've already installed. You won't have this yet, so just ignore it for now. That's the ground wire from the parking brake. We'll get into that when we put together the stereo afterwards. Okay, so here we are removing the screws. So this is pretty basic stuff. So far, we'll get to the complicated part after we get the stereo out. Again, be careful not to drop these screws behind the stereo because there is an open pit back there and you will lose them forever. Make sure to get a tight grip on them, get an extra finger in there if you have to. Do not let those screws drop. So like I said, everything up until now is pretty simple. Don't be intimidated by all the wires you see behind the stereo when you get it out. I'm going to show you specific for the 2011 Maxima which wire you're looking for. In the other models, I know the 2010, it's also the violet and white and the red and green. Not sure about 2009 or even before that. So again, you're doing this at your own risk. But for the 2011, this is exactly what worked for me. Alright, so those screws are out. This will slide off nice and easy. Comes right off. Alright, so again, being very cautious. The bottom of this is very sharp. So I removed that knob again. Slide the stereo right out. And here's that mess of wires I was talking about. Some of these are easier to remove than others. The one we're looking for is the only one with the violet and white wire. And that just so happens to be on this model, the top socket there. I'm not sure if you can see it in the video or not, but it is this one right here. So what I do is I remove all the wires just to get easy access and set the stereo aside. Carefully unclip everything, and it'll look a little bit like this with all the clips hanging out. Keep track of where the clips go. It'll make it a lot easier when you put everything back together. This is the one we're looking for. Right here, 32-pin connector, and in the back it's the only connector there that has the violet and white. Remember that, that's the key. The other ones are violet and yellow. Do not cut the violet and yellow, cut the violet and white. There's also, the violet and white is your VSS wire. The red and green that's also in this plug is the parking brake wire. So to straighten this out again, one final time, the parking brake wire we're going to cut and ground the end that connects to the stereo. The VSS wire we're going to cut, install some extension wire, and put in a switch so that we can turn the VSS on or off. So here you have my wires that were already cut. These are my units that I've used butt connectors to connect the extensions. That goes to the VSS wire. That's purple and white, violet and white. But here we have I'll show you the grounding wire. There it is for the stereo portion of the parking brake. Okay, just connect an end there and screw it in right to that location that you saw earlier. Okay, very important that you ground the end that goes to the stereo. Okay, if you don't, it won't work. Then take that open end that goes into the interior of the car, the one I'm pinching right now here. Let's see here, we'll get a good look. This one here. And just tape the crap out of it. It'll prevent any shorts from happening. So those two used to be connected right there. put an extension of the stereo wire in again, and then taped off the end that goes to the interior of the car. Alright, here's the VSS wire. You can see where I cut it and put 2 pieces of stereo wire, just $7 stereo wire from Radio Shack, using butt connectors. I cut it, used a butt connector to connect each wire, each end of that VSS wire, and sent those wires way down in the dash. It's kind of hard to tell where they go, but in that general direction, and you'll see it in your car. The wires will come out down by the gas pedal. That's where I installed my on-off switch. Okay, you can install it wherever you want, but this was the easiest and best location for me because it's a little bit discreet. Okay, that on-off switch, a very basic switch. You can install whatever switch you want, but this one worked for me. It's very simple because the back only has an in and an out. Okay, so you just flick it to do on-off to complete that circuit with the VSS wire. So those wires run right in. If you can picture it in your head, it's like a little loop. Switch is on, the loop is complete. When the switch is off, the circuit is broken. And so there's no feedback coming from the VSS wire to the machine. So your car thinks it's not moving. All of my ends are already taped up really strong, but we'll go over that in just a second. Let's go over the connections. So we have the switch, the butt connector. I'm not sure what the other 2 are called, but other hooks that came in my wiring kit. Use a wire stripper. Okay, strip your wire. Very simple. And then use the butt connector. Make sure the copper wiring is what you're pinching. So you put the wire in until the rubber hits that first narrowing of the butt connector, and then pinch down the metal portion onto the copper wire. If it's not touching the copper wire, you're going to get a bad connection. So give it a tug, make sure it's nice and strong, and that's just what I did for the connections inside the car. Okay, same thing with the other end of the butt connector to complete the wire extension for me. Okay, strip the wire, put it in, and make sure that copper wiring is touching the metal of the butt connector. Pinch it right down. Now, some butt connectors are made to use a heat gun to melt the rubber to create a tight seal. I don't have a heat gun, so I just wrap tape all around it. And you can't use too much tape. Just make sure that's protected, and it'll prevent any shorts, any shorting of the circuits. This is for the ground wire for the brake, the parking brake from the stereo. Okay, strip the wire, put it in, pinch it, and then screw it in where we showed you before. This I put on the ends of each of the VSS wires, the extensions to go to the switch. And this was convenient because if you push hard enough, you can get it right on that switch. Then I just clamp it down. So insert the wire in the end, clamp it, push it onto the switch, and then clamp it again right onto the switch. Cover it with the electrical tape so that it won't cause any short circuiting. Now these switches are great. They have an adjusting knob that you can use to sort of tighten it down to that hole that you're going to drill in your dash. You want to make sure that the hole is just wide enough to fit that textured piece of the screw, and not enough for that washer to fit through. Otherwise, your switch is just going to go right back through the dash. Okay, so if done properly, you can adjust it so it looks nice and flush with your trim. Be sure to watch part 2 to see how it all comes together. Simple enough.